Just start recording the session. There we go. Sorry about that. I was just saying good morning to everyone and introducing today's workshop, which is the startup versus small business. So for today's agenda, we pretty much almost done with the session introduction. So we're going to have the session introduction. Then we're going to have the first part of the startup methodology for about 40 minutes, yeah. Then we're going to have a refreshment break at 11 till 11:15. And then we'll continue with session 2 from 11:15 to 12. And then at 12, we will announce the food innovator that has been selected for the closeout program, the winner. And then at 11:20, we'll just do a wrap up, a closeout, any questions and what to expect for next week's pitch competition. I think my presentation, okay, yeah, it started here. There we go. So our session today, as I mentioned, it's called the Startup Methodology Workshop. So ideally here we look at how one can build smart in order for you to fail fast and move like a startup. So what's great about understanding this methodology is it's very rewarding in the sense of even if you make any mistakes in your business, you will always learn a lesson from that mistake. In fact, it's better to make a mistake very early so that you can learn from it and better your business. So this is what we call failing fast and moving like a startup. Going to look at the two versus when we look at a startup versus a small business. Now, startups and small businesses are very vital to the economy. And this is pretty much because their fundamental goals and mindsets differ significantly. Now, when we look at the two definitions of what a startup is, when we look at the vision of a startup focuses on growth and scalability. So when we look at a startup, their aim is always to disrupt the market, create a new solution, and achieve exponential expansion. So when you're in a startup, you're always thinking go big or go home. So you're always taking risks. You're always looking at what's new and what's innovative and how you can break into that market, grow and scale at a very, very rapid pace. Now, when we look at the goals of a startup, they are always to validate a scalable business model. So a startup always looks at how quickly can I grow and how big can I grow. So in the initial phase of a startup, most of the time it's all about experimenting, you're learning, you're testing, you're iterating, you're trying to find a new way to make profit. And you're also trying to repeat this so that your profit can grow. And you also want your profit to grow exponentially. So you're always looking at servicing a market from a big perspective. Your audience is not fixed. You're always looking to exponentially grow your market as a startup. Now, when we look at risk and innovation, this is what a startup pretty much embraces. This is what they live and breathe. They are always willing to risk it. They are always willing to innovate so that they can break into the market and take over. That is the methodology of a startup. They look at this because once they see that there is profit in the methods that they are following, they then look at how they can scale this methodology in order for them to get significant returns. So they don't really look at being comfortable when you are a startup. It's always about pivoting, getting uncomfortable, learning what was uncomfortable, making sure that you fix that mistake and you grow bigger. So even if you make a loss, you look at your losses and you say, this cannot happen again. How do I change this? And you look at how your returns can significantly grow. Now, when a startup seeks funding, they often seek external investment. This will often come from venture capitalists, angel investors as well. And this is often to fuel rapid growth. As I mentioned, startups are always looking at growing fast and growing big. And lastly, when we look at culture, the culture is typically fast-paced, adaptable, and highly focused on innovation and disrupting the market. So if I go back, because I didn't define what a startup is in the beginning. So a startup is a new, fast-growing company, which is typically in the early stages of its development. That's where we would classify a startup. So there is a difference between a startup and there is a difference between a small business. Now, what is a small business in comparison to a startup? Now, when we define a small business, it is privately owned, it is typically independent, and it is operated for profit. It employs fewer than 500 people or a company with lower annual revenue compared to a larger business. So when you look at a startup is always looking to increase their revenue. They're always about growth. Whereas a small business is making revenue consistently, is looking to grow their revenue even on small profit margins. They don't have a big team. What you notice with startups is they usually blow up and end up employing big teams. With the small business, you usually keep it small. You're looking at less than 500 people, even less than 100. And you have a certain amount of annual revenue, which is less in comparison to when we look at bigger business revenues. So in terms of your brackets are different versus that of a larger enterprise. Now, the vision of a small business is often and always it's often and always centered around sustainability and serving a local market. So making sure that the business has customers, it is sustainable, and it usually serves a local market. So if you have a business, you know that you are serving a certain market in Standerton and you are growing. You're not necessarily saying, okay, I've opened my business and I want to immediately sell to Mozambique or Zimbabwe. You are more looking at a local market. A small business always focuses on providing value to a specific community or a customer base. So this is what we call your value proposition. So this is what you bring to the table. And this is often specific to a certain community or a certain audience within your local market. Now, when we look at the goals of a small business, their goal is always to create profitability and a sustainable business that provides a livelihood for the owners as well as potential employees and others. So it's always for the business to maintain its profits. It's always for the business to be able to pay for their employees and for the livelihood of you as the owner of the business, for you to be able to survive and actually earn a salary from the business, and also be able to have independence financially from the business, and also for you to survive just in life as a whole. That is the goal of a small business. Now, when we look at the risks and innovations that surround a small business usually avoids risks, so they are more risk averse. They focus on proving the business, on actually not even proving the business model. You are already focusing on a proven business model and in an established market, meaning you already have customers, you already understand your methodologies, you already understand what goes into your business, and now you just want to grow that business. You're not necessarily looking to now start another business that looks at something else. You're looking to maintain and grow your business. So innovation in small businesses, it tends to be incremental, meaning that it's bit by bit. It starts off small. You kind of learn what your small business challenges are. Maybe you are someone who's cash dependent, and then you decide, you know what, my customers, they often ask me, do I swipe? So then you invest in a Yoko machine or in an e-cocker machine, and that is you take a risk because you are making a purchase. So you are going to utilize business funds. You are bringing innovation to the business because now you are bringing convenience. Customers can come to your store and swipe and not need to worry about holding cash, but it's done in small intervals, in bits and pieces. You're not necessarily looking to immediately open 50 franchises of your store. And then when we look at the funding model of a typical small business, they are always reliant on personal savings, loans, business loans, and often reinvested profits. So the profits that you make from your business is often what you will use to reinvest in your business in order for you to make more profits. It is less focused on external equity funding, meaning that you're not looking for angel investors or external investors to come into the business. You are more focused on how your business profits and maybe using your own personal savings to actually pour into the business. Maybe you want to buy more stock so that you can sell it you will get it at a discounted rate, meaning that when you sell the items, you will be making more profit. And then once you have profit, you will then reinvest that profit from your business to go and buy more stock. So those are more the types of funding models that we have with small businesses. It's not always the case of looking for an investor to come on board. It's more about how I can grow this business within my personal capacity, and often even grants, competitions, and different types of programs that will expose you to funding opportunities as well. Now, the culture of a small business, to be honest, it differs because everybody is different, but it always emphasizes stability, having good customer service, as well as having strong community ties, maintaining those relationships and maintaining, making sure your customers are happy. When you get feedback from your customers, you often will implement it immediately. So there's that type of culture within a small business. Now, if we compare the two characteristics between the two, so if we look at a startup and a small business, and we look at the markets of the two, so the market of a startup, it often targets unproven or emerging markets or seeks to create new ones. So a startup is always looking to create their audience. They're always looking to find something new, to say there is a demand of this. This doesn't exist. I've done my research. People want this solution. I'm going to invent this solution, and that will, by virtue of that, create a new market. Or you look at emerging markets, you kind of see what are people interested in, what is trending in this market, and then you kind of leverage that for you to break into your market. That is why a startup is very, 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 very focused on scalability, because in order for a business to scale, it needs a lot of customers. Now, when we look at a small business, the market usually serves already existing markets and markets that have already been well defined. So you already have your regular customers who make your regular audience, who make your regular orders, and that already existing audience will then maybe refer your products or services to somebody else. And then it kind of makes like a pool of an existing market. That's usually how it works for small businesses. Now, when we look at the startup, the product and services of a startup, this is this type of a business focuses on more novel or something different. So something new, something fresh, something that often leverages technology as well. So it needs to be something new, something that entices someone. And it then creates that need, hence why you are then creating a demand for your product. When we look at that of a small business, this is often based on established models, and you focus on quality. So you focus on the quality of what you're providing. You focus on the service. How happy are your customers? What can you improve? As well as local adaptation. So the example I mentioned about your customers, them saying, Ish, I don't have cash. You kind of notice that. And then you decide to get a speed points machine. And now you've adapted to your local audience, because now you're ensuring that even when they don't have cash, they're able to make payment to you. Now, when we look at scalability, a startup is designed for rapid and cost-effective scaling without a linear increase in resources. So a startup works with what they have, and they have to make sure that they keep their costs very, very low, and they make sure that their costs are low so that they can produce their solution at a bulk capacity, break into the market, and immediately scale and grow from there. So in this, technology and automations are key, because you can unlock. Okay, sorry about that. This is key because you can no longer manually manage your business if there are so many customers and maybe you are only 5 people. So now you have to look at what types of technologies and innovations you put in your business so that you can automate orders, and you are able to serve your customers at a rapid pace and in a cost-effective way. Now, when we look at that of a small business, the growth is often linear, and it's also dependent on the increase of resources. So this looks at maybe possibly hiring more staff, possibly getting more equipment, possibly getting a bigger space, possibly getting a mobile space. So those are often the growth factors that contribute to the scalability of a small business. And then we're going to look at the organization. Now, the organization of a startup is typically lean and agile. It has usually flat hierarchy, so everybody is working together. There's no boss. Everybody is just on the grind. Everybody's flexible. They make sure that they deliver, and they focus on rapid iteration. And if we look at a small business, now this can often range because you will have your sole proprietors to larger, more hierarchical structures, because you will have maybe your directors, maybe you will have your employees, and maybe you will have different types of organizational structures in your business. Maybe you'll have someone for sales, maybe you have someone for customer services, maybe you have someone who does the running for your business, management. So there's different types of roles. That's what often occurs in small businesses. And then the last point that I'll go through is the exit strategy. Now, what happens with a startup is that they always have an exit strategy in mind. A startup isn't designed to be around for 50 years. Most of the time, they have a solution and they get acquired by a bigger organization in order for them to provide returns to investors. So when investors invest in the business, and then the startup is able to scale and grow, and now it's high on the market, it's servicing, everything is working. Investors then are able to make a profit and make a return on their investment, which is pretty much the strategy surrounding a startup. Now, when we look at that of a small business, this often can involve passing the business to family. Other people sell their businesses to other local businesses, or they just simply continue to operate sustainably. Okay, now we're going to look at how to build a pitch deck. Now, a pitch deck follows a different structure. We did go through it in our other workshop. There is also a lot of content on Classroom, where the different types of layouts are there. But if you need assistance, please reach out to us. But I'm just gonna go through the basic layout structure of how you're going to compile your pitch deck. So your first slide is going to be your opening slide. So this is where you're going to have your logo. You're going to have your logo, your pitch title, as well as a subtitle. This can be your company slogan if you have one. Then you can have your name, the date, as well as any copyright info. You can have pictures of maybe your business operations as well, but you can also include those in your pitch deck as well. Then we're gonna have the introduction slide. So on the introduction slide, it's pretty much speaking about who you are and what qualifies you and your team. Tell us what you're about. Tell us what you guys do. Tell us about the business, and tell us about the team. Tell us about your skills. Tell us about your background in your business and what led to you. Tell us the story of your business and the story of your business team. That's pretty much what the introduction is. So you will have that, and always remember to have your company logo on the presentation. On each and every single slide on your pitch deck, your logo must be there. And then you're gonna have your problem slide. So on your problem slide, you look at the problem that you have identified. Then you speak about why it is a problem. And then you speak about who is it a problem for. So who actually has this problem? And then you speak about what's preventing them from fixing that problem. So a nice tip for this is for you to really visualize the problem. You know, you can tell us a story, you can tell us about research that you've done, market research, as long as you make it clear to say that this is the problem that I've identified, the reason why it's a problem, who is the problem for, and what's preventing them from fixing it. I think a lot of you guys did nail this when we had the presentation with Senzeni, where you were split in different groups. Everybody did very, very well in terms of identifying the challenges that we have, and why is that a problem, who the audience is, and what's preventing them from fixing it. So those are the 4 points that you just need to cover on your problem slide. And don't forget your logo, always in the corner. So now, obviously, once you've warmed us up and you've told us, okay, this is the problem, these are the people who are experiencing the problem, you now go to the solution. Now you're closing the sale. Now you're saying, you know those people who will, they often sell herbs, and they'll tell you, they'll ask you, do you have diarrhea or pain in your chest, or are your bones sore? And then they tell you, okay, this is the problem and here's the solution. They'll tell you maybe you have low blood or it's your diet, etc. And then they say, here is a solution. Here's the herb that you can buy. So you say, what is your proposed solution? And then you say, how does it address the problem? So I'll say, this is my herb. It does this, it burns fat, it fights cancerous cells, etc. in the body, which will ultimately make you feel better. Then you speak about what relief does it bring to your target audience. You say, okay, so obviously these herbs, they will make you feel better, you will be healthier, and you will be strong and live longer. So even with your solution, you say, what relief does it bring to your target audience? And then you also need to mention why it will work. Another tip, visualize the solution. The very same way you were able to visualize the problem, make sure that you visualize the solution, because that's usually what closes a sale. So what you can do here is you can use customer testimonials, you can use some emotive images, something very visual. You want the audience to feel like, yeah, you know what, the solution. Maybe you can show before and after pictures. Maybe you can show your products. Maybe you can come with your product so that the user can actually see, or they can get a sense of like, yeah, if I buy this product, this is how I'm going to benefit. So as I mentioned, it's pretty much closing the sale. Then the next slide is your market size slide. So your market size slide is basically how big is your market? This is your audience, who you're looking to sell your products or services to. How big is the audience? So look at different types of statistics in your area, in the country, and so forth. And also tell us who is your market. Tell us who is your market. So if your market is women, then you must tell us, there's this many women in Standerton, and that is the market size. Then you say, who are your women? So obviously who is your market? So obviously they're women in this case. And then you say, how will you validate this market? So how sure are you that this market is going to buy my product? So you'll say that maybe you've going to do research, or maybe you've done research, or maybe you're taking your products out to the streets and you're conducting tests, and you're understanding that, okay, maybe every single day, 5 out of 10 women stop at my stall and at least 2 of them buy my product. And why this market specifically? So make sure that you empathize with your market, because obviously you are providing them with a solution. So ensure that you put numbers on the board, pulling some statistics and something that is verifiable, so that you can showcase the size of your market and who you are looking to serve. I think this is a very, very difficult, the one of the more hardest slides of the presentation. It's the market size, because it really requires you to do research. And then you have your competitive landscape. Now, when you look at your competitive landscape slide, you're pretty much looking at your competitors. Né? So if you are selling chicken, you can already speak about your competitors. You will say that there's KFC at the corner, there's Chicken Licken over here, there's also Barcelos, but people still buy my chicken because, okay, but you won't really say that in this slide, but you basically speaking about who your competitors are and what makes you different. So you actually do speak in the slide to say, okay, instead of everybody going to KFC or not Pedro's, Barcelos or Chicken Licken, people prefer to come to my store because my chicken is organic and fresh. It has my grandmother's Oza sauce, and it's affordable. There's no long lines or anything like that. This is what you can mention in this slide. And then you can also mention what your competitors are good at. So obviously you can mention that KFC it's a branch, so they already have an established audience. You also speak about why they are your competitor. So you mentioned that they have many franchises. They have a bigger space. They have bathrooms or things like that. This is looking at your competitive landscape. So a tip for this slide is that when you actually understand your market, you will then be able to understand your competitors. So it's very, very important for you to do your research. Okay, sorry, I think I skipped a slide. So after market size, you're actually going to have your revenue model. Né? So when you look at your revenue model, this is basically your money slide. How you're going to make your money, how much do you charge your customers, who is actually paying, and why they are paying those amounts. So you can use your BMC, which is your business model canvas, to really unpack your value proposition here. So if I use the chicken example again, you'll mention how will you make money. Maybe you're making money because you don't have a lot of employees to pay. You get your chicken every single day at a cheaper price at a farm. You charge your customers this price because it costs you 60 Rand to make a plate. So you charging your customers 100 Rand. Who pays? You speak about your customers, who's paying. You also mentioned that maybe you have flexibility. You take orders from schools or from workplaces where, and then you go there and you deliver the food for them, those types of things. These are the things that you mention in your revenue model. Then after your revenue model, you will speak about your competitors. This is then that competitor slide where you will do research on your competitors and speak about them. And then after you've spoken about your competitors, so after you've spoken about your competitors, you can basically showcase your product. So if you're selling food, you can bring samples, or you can show pictures of your plates, your dishes. You can bring samples of your herbs. You can show a video of everything. This one has to be visual. It's a very, very visual part of your pitch deck, because now you are showing proof. You must show proof that, guys, I'm actually making this chicken and it's fire. There's somebody there, they're licking their fingers. So you want to make sure that the audience is moved, that you want to make sure that people can see it. Yeah, this person is really, really serious about this chicken. It's not something that you are theoretically selling. It's now something that is practical and real. So it's something that someone can visualize and engage with. So if your solution is very, very technical, just lead with a high-level process, something overview to ensure that your audience understands. So you don't have to go into the nitty-gritty things of showing us the code or backends or so forth. Just show us how it works, what are the benefits, and what the solution actually is. You can add pictures, videos, testimonials, physical samples, whatever you feel will best showcase your business. And then you'll have a slide where now you're actually speaking about the second, this is basically where you will basically be looking at or speaking to what are your next steps. So what is the vision you have for your company? What are your short-term goals? What are you looking to get? Maybe you're looking to buy a stofo because your current stofo can only make 4 chickens. So if I buy this stofo, I can make 10 chickens at once, What must be true for you to achieve those goals? What must be true for you to achieve those goals? So in order for you to get that stofo, you've already actually taken the time to say, yeah, this stofo will make 10 chickens, meaning that you don't want to be making 10 chickens and you don't have customers. So you must at least know that by the time you want to invest in getting the stove, it's because you have a high demand that you want to serve. And then what do you also need from your audience? So you are obviously now you closing the deal. Now you're saying, this is actually what I need. I need this stofo, because if I have this stofo, I can make 10 chickens at once. And currently I'm only able to make 4 chickens. And my chickens burn. I have to watch them. It's always pugging. I have to pay for repairs. These are the things that you mentioned in terms of, okay, this is what's next for my business. What are my goals? Why do I need this? And how am I going to achieve these goals? And then again, another tip for the solution for this slide is, if your solution is highly technical, please do lead with a high-level process and a high-level overview. But with this, because it's more personal and about your business's needs, you don't have to really, it is an overview type of thing, because it's based on what your business needs are. So you can mention, for example, the stove. Maybe there's different types of stove models. You don't need to maybe give a breakdown of those because you already state that this is the specific stove that I want because of this purpose. You don't have to like make comparisons or, you're making it clear about what you need next for your business in order for you to succeed. And that is pretty much the structure of a pitch deck. Let me go back again and take it from the top. So don't forget, we start off with your opening slide, né? Who you are, what your business is, your logo, maybe you have a slogan, etc. You don't have to waste too much time here. It's just for people to be like, oh, aha, and then you start to speak. So you speak about who you are and your team. Tell us about your business, okay? And then you speak about the problem that your business is solving. So you identify the problem, why it is a problem, why other people aren't fixing that problem. And again, don't forget to visualize the problem. And then you go straight into your solution. What is your proposed solution, or what is your current solution? How does this solution address the problem? What relief am I getting when I use your solution? And how exactly does this solution work? Once you've broken down the solution nicely, you go into your market size. Remember here, you're going to showcase your numbers. You're going to pull some statistics, and you're going to verify your information. You don't have to have big numbers, guys. You don't have to say there's 10,000, every day, as long as you are able to give a figure to say, this is how many people are interested in my business. This is how I can validate that they are interested in my business, and why exactly am I looking to target this market for my business. So this is the market size. Once you've broken down your market size, you go into your revenue model. Now you speak about those people that you've identified who are your markets. How are you going to make money from them? How much are you going to charge them? Who is going to pay? And why those amounts? So a nice tip here is, if you've done your business model canvas, you can already use that section of the revenue model. In fact, a lot of the business model canvas will feed into your presentation. And then once you've spoken about your revenue model, you speak about your competitors, what they are currently doing, what makes you different from them, why they are good at what they are doing because they are your competitors, and why you are competing with them. What is it about them that you have that makes you better? Remember here, if you understand your market, you will definitely understand your competitors. And then as we come to a close of your pitch deck, you can have a video, you can have a screenshot, you can bring samples. What you can also do, what often would work for me sometimes, is I would always do the demo in the end. So maybe you do have, maybe bringing chicken wings or something. You don't want to waste too much time going around and giving people the wings if you still have other things to present. So it's always up to you. You can then decide, okay, instead of having this slide here, let me take it to the end because I'll be done and I'm not going to waste time. I'll just be, then people are there, and then you've already kind of presented the demo at the end. So it's up to you. I prefer presenting the demo in the end, but you can, it's up to you basically. As long as you have a demonstration, that's what matters. And then this is where you close off your pitch, where you speak about what is next for the business, what are your goals for your business, and what do you need in order for your business to grow? And how are you going to achieve those goals? This is pretty much where you know that there's prizes up for grabs. So you can mention that I need these prizes because of this is how it's going to impact my business. And then you are done. So it's not too bad. You kind of, I would definitely recommend practicing your pitch. But if you're someone who's very, you're good at public speaking, you can wing it. Don't be nervous. It's exciting. I mean, who doesn't want to sell their business and maybe get some cash for their business? So let's have some fun. Let's compete. Really looking forward to seeing the presentations. I think we are pretty much on time for our first lunch break. I will quickly pause the recording and we will resume again at 11:15 for the second half of the session, as well as going through some examples of existing pitch decks. Thanks, everyone. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, sharp. See you guys. Korapas. Okay, it's 11:15. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much again for joining today's session, where we are pretty much focusing on the startup methodology. So we pretty much spent the first half of the session looking at the theoretical side of the startup methodology. So we spoke about what is the differences between a small business as well as a startup. They would both fall under the cloud of a small business in the beginning, but a startup is always looking to expand and grow. We looked at how those different elements and aspects and what are the different types of characteristics of a startup versus that of a small business. And then we also looked at a presentation where we actually went through a pitch deck and how one can do a pitch deck, which will be very relevant to our last closeout session. So what we'll be focusing on and how we can basically summarize the first half is that a startup is a newly created company that is aimed for rapid growth and has a scalable business model. It's meant to disrupt the market with innovative products or services. Whereas a small business, on the other hand, focuses more on stability. It focuses on sustainability. It looks at profitability and servicing a more established market. So that's the main differences between the two. But whether you're a startup or whether you're a small business, you will always need to have a pitch deck. Why? Because you're always selling your business. That's when we went into the pitch deck, looked at how the pitch deck can be structured. It's also up to you. You will see in the examples that we're going to go through. A lot of them are tech companies because they are the ones who often use pitch decks. And you'll see how the information flows, how the content actually looks based on the example that we just went through before the break. Do any of you guys know Matchbox? Do you guys know Matchbox? Can just raise your hand if you know it. If you don't know it, it's okay. Yeah, I don't think anybody knows. But it says here, Matchbox, the flirting game. I'm also not familiar with Matchbox. I thought it was like a dating app. But I guess we'll see with this pitch deck how it goes. But you see they have their logo and then they have their subtext. They don't even have the date or anything like that. So again, it's up to you. So you see their presentation, very simple. They say meet Matt, and then here's a picture of Matt. So obviously the person is speaking as they're presenting. So they're telling a story. They're saying Matt spots a girl he likes at a party, but like most of us, Matt won't go over to say hello. See, now you see they're speaking about the problem. He has the same problem most of us do, fear of rejection. And now look, they're hitting you with a problem. They say meet the cure. Sorry. Matchbox, the flirting game. So it is, yeah, it's like people around you get connected if they like you too. So I think it is like a dating app. I think it was one of the very, very, very first ones before Tinder and all the other ones. So here they're showing screenshots. You see they're showing they demoing the app. They're showing you what it does. They're showing you screens from the app as well. You see, because it's an application. And then here they're speaking about where they are as a business. So they're saying under the hood, there are new signals for relevance. So they're looking at hyperlocation. So using Wi-Fi and not GPS. They're looking at mutual linking. They're looking at social interests in common. And they're also looking at friends in common. And then you see here, they speak about the revenue opportunity. So they speak about in-app purchases. So 2 matches exposed for free would be $1. And then to see each match new after that. So they would actually pay people to see if they were matched. And then here you're able to send virtual flirt gifts. Ooh, about buy some flowers, rose, charm them. And then you pay to show up higher in a like list or not like list. So those were the type of revenue opportunities that they were pursuing. Oh, I think this is the end of the presentation, actually. And this is the end of the pitch deck. Ooh. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I'm just quickly trying to fix my screen. Just give me 2 minutes. Okay, sorry about that. And then we have another pitch deck. This is more, I think it's like a replica of Airbnb. So even that one, the previous one is like it's more dating. You guys saw it's a dating sort of app, sort of pitch deck. So this one is a airbed and breakfast pitch deck. So you see here they have their logo, welcome, and then their subtitle, big book rooms with locals rather than hotels. See here, they speak about the problem statement. So price is an important concern for customers booking travel online. Then they say hotels leave you disconnected from the city and its culture. Then they say there's no easy way exists to book a home with a local or become a host. And then they speak about their solution was a web platform where users can rent out their space to host travelers too. They speak save money when traveling, make money when hosting, share culture, local connection to the city. So then they also here is their market validation. The other presentation didn't really have a market validation slide. Here they say there's 660,000 on temporary housing sites. So they also speak about their competitor, which is couchsurfing.com. Then they also speak about temporary house listings on obviously New York's Craigslist and based on data that's applicable to them. And then they go to even expand on their market size to say that this is how many book trips are booked in the whole world, and the budget for online trips. This is how much of these people book this, meaning that they don't book hotels and so forth. Then they narrow it down to even more when they speak about Airbnbs and breakfast, which is then their market share. And then here they demo their product. You see, so they also demoing the product inside the presentation. So you can search by city. They say review listings, book it. So it's very straight to the point. They've got their screenshots, and then they speak about their business model, also / revenue model. So they say we take a 10% commission on each transaction, meaning that if 10.6 million people are booking on Airbnb, and then these fees are usually maybe 3 nights at $70 per night. And if they then charge that 10%, they will make $20. And if they look at that in ratio to their customers, they're looking at 200 million. So they speak about how much money they are going to make. So you kind of forecast your business based on what you plan to do. And then here they speak about market adoption. So here they also speak about what they plan to do in the future. So they want to target events. They want to have partnerships and have alternative travel. So they're going to work with other partners as well. And also post on Craigslist and other types of platforms. And then here is the competitors slide. So here they break it down and they say for each competitor, you see, they say Airbnb is going to be affordable and it's going to have online. Then it speaks about another hotels.com. They also offer online transactions and they speak about hotels.com, but hotels.com is expensive. So they actually gave a breakdown of each competitor. Then the other competitors, they also only do offline transactions, whereas they're going to do online transactions, similar to Craigslist and couch surfing, which is also more affordable. Then they have competitive advantages. So this is where they speak about what the competitors are. So this is just dummy copy, but then they speak about it. So they say maybe they were the first ones to come to the market. So maybe they were the first people and now people are loyal. And then maybe they're going to have host incentives. And then there's listing once. So you don't always need to relist. You just list once and you advertise. Then you make it easy to use. You're allowed to create profiles. So they speak about what makes them different from their competitors. Okay. And that is pretty much that. Let's do one more example. Let's do this Uber one, and then I will do a more local one, and then I will be wrapping up this part of the session. Okay, so here's Uber, right? So here they say next generation car service. You see, here immediately they speak about the problem. They say cabs in 2008, they use all technology. You see, they speak about radio dispatch, no two-way communication. It's a common car. There's a specific type of car that they all use. Then they speak about hailing being done by hand or phone. There's no GPS coordinate. It's like a taxi. They're basically speaking about cabs, and needing to wait because now you don't know when you're gonna get a cab. And then here they speak about the medallion system. So they speak about how the taxi that taxi system monopolizes the quality of service, meaning you don't have a choice, you just have to use the and they are the ones running it, and then the drivers are usually underpaid. So you see here, they're now looking at it from drivers to say that this is how much medallions cost, but the actual driver makes 31,000. Whereas there's no incentives or accountability for the drivers or the clients. And then they speak about how digital hailing can now make street hail unnecessary, meaning you don't have to combi anymore. And then they say the Uber cab concept, it's fast, it's efficient, and it's an on-demand car service. They speak about the market, so professionals in American cities. Then they speak about the convenience of a cab and the experience of a professional chauffeur. Then they speak about the automation, reducing waiting time, and using web and device technology, and then optimizing fleets and incented cars and making it the net jets of car services. Then they speak about how it's a one-click car service. So you need to be a member in order to use the service. So that then builds trust, because then you build your trustworthy market. Not everybody just can hail without them having a profile. It's also not hailed in the street. So there's no licenses to park or anything like that. The clients and the members just use digital hailing. And then you are guaranteed a pickup. So unlike a yellow cab, the mobile app will match you to a client and a driver. And then they speak about how you'll see photos for each, so demonstration. So you'll say then, okay, I will demonstrate this in my demo. And then they speak about their key differentiators. So here they speak about how it's members only, so meaning you have respectable clientele. It's a one-click hailing, so pickup is in 5 minutes. You have a fast response time, so it's easier than calling and saying, okay, I'm here, can you come pick me up, street address immediately. The GPS picks up where you are and it will locate a driver closer to you. They were looking at luxury automobiles, so your Mercedes sedans. They are great drivers, so they want you to rate your driver so that you will get the best driver. And then it's a high-tech solution, so it's geo-aware and auto-dispatched. And then they also optimized fleets, so it's logistical. They're using some specific software, which they speak about here. And then here they mention their operating principles, so luxury service on demand. So this operating principles is also your value proposition, basically. So luxury service on demand, modern and fuel efficient fleet, customer focus, computer coordinated, the best end user experience possible. It's statistically optimized response time. It's prepaid cashless billing service, and it's also profitable by design. And then they show you pictures and screenshots of how the app is going to work, that it's going to be using devices. It's going to click, it needs you to request from a geo-aware device, so you can't have a Popotela phone and use Uber. Then you're going to SMS from any phone. So this would have been like how it was back then, because this is a very old pitch deck. And then here they speak about booking trips. Then they show you where the cars are. So this is like how they also demoing inside the pitch deck. They speak about pre-specific location coordinates, so that it's easy to already have pickup locations, and then having a Google Maps integration. And then they speak about use cases. So they say trips to and from restaurants, bars, and show, fast local transport where parking isn't easy, and then airport pickup and drop off, so you can schedule this, working while commuting, so you can have you can work in the car, you can't necessarily work in like a taxi, so they were selling that they would be Wi-Fi in the cars, and then dropping off kids at school. So instead of you needing to drop your kids off, you request for them, they go, you can go to work. And then also looking at transporting elderly peoples. And then when we look at the user benefits, here they basically speak about what are the benefits of using Uber instead of cabs. So they speak about how long it takes. They speak about cabs not being safe and clean. They speak about car services needing notice, because obviously you need to book your time. Then they speak about the cost and then tax. Then they also say Uber, of all of these things, Uber cab would be faster and cheaper than a limo, but still nicer and safer than that of a cab. This pitch deck, their pitch deck is very, very long. Okay, then they speak about, okay, the environmental benefits, using obviously now ride sharing, less cars on the road, it's good for the environment. And then here they speak about how they would have the different models. So, your Uber Black, your standard, your premiums, those kinds of things. Okay, I think here they were just mapping out their service. Here they're speaking about the type of technology that they use. And then this is when this is how they speak about the demand in terms of how they can forecast the demand in terms of geo mapping an area. Okay, so here at least they do speak about the market share. They've put a table. You can also do this. You can also put a table or statistics. And here they speak about who the overall market is and that the market is growing. Then they give a breakdown of the market. So they do it in a pie chart. They say they look at retails, businesses, retail airport trips, as well as business airport trips. Then they give a breakdown of the cities and where they wanted to cover at the time. And then they also then speak about the potential outcome. So those forecasts of the business. Then they also speak about smartphones, basically them understanding that the reason why they are building an app is because there's already some form of smartphone adoption. So they're already showing that people use smartphones. So in the future, this is what they're going to do. They're going to allow for cheaper cars to be used, like less expensive cars. They're going to improve their GPSs. They're going to add some form of subscription where you're paying a premium and booking in advance. And then they also speak about their marketing ideas. So your go-to markets, how they're going to actually go there. They're going to have an invite-only system. So for referrals and members, then they're going to have a possible slogan, and they just pretty much speak about what their ideas are, and then they expand more on their service. And then the last slide here pretty much speaks about what type of progress they've made to date. So where are they now and what's next? So they speak about here you can say, I've registered my business, I've opened my bank account. You speak about what's relevant to you in terms of your business. And then you also speak about what's next for your business. This one was quite long, guys. Please, it doesn't have to be that long. And yeah, I think I will go through something that's a bit more local. Okay, so this is called Adela Africa. So as you can see on the first slide, it pretty much breaks down the problem statement. So obviously here, I didn't really do an introduction. So maybe in your first slide, you don't have to have a slide with your introduction. You can already introduce yourself and then immediately go into the pitch deck. Ne? So here it's just giving a problem statement in terms of what the problem is. So here it's accessibility, it was curated expenses, localization, and payments. So you saw with Uber how they gave listed their problems. You also saw with Mesh.com that they were speaking more about rejection and basically Kwababa being their problem statement. So whatever is applicable to your business, you can see the logos are there, you can see the visuals, and then you can also see what the name of the slide. Make sure you name your slide. Then once you've actually given a breakdown of the problem, you then go into the solution. So you mention what your solution is. So as here you say, we're saying Enter Atela, which is a digital platform that offers event ticketing, destination booking, virtual tour guides, etc. Then you speak about what the benefits are for your solution. So here it was about traveling your country your way in your language. So having curation, centralization, and localization. So you sell your solution and you make sure that the customer knows that you are here with purpose. You've already spoken about your problem, and this is how you're going to solve the problem. And then this speaks about market validation. So here we have some numbers. Remember, numbers are everything when it comes to market validation. You saw with Uber was using graphs and tables, but they still had numbers. They used pie charts, which still represent numbers. So whenever you think about market validation, you must just know that I need to have some numbers. So you can work, you start with your big number. So as I mentioned with the person who's selling maybe herbs in town, you can say this many people live in Standerton, and then you can say then a smaller number of people every day are in town, and then you go to make it smaller to make it relevant to you, and you say at least 100 people walk past my stall every day, and then you go on to say, and 50 people will stop and engage with me. Maybe this is on average per week. And then you say, I make average sales of 5 to 10 sales per day. So this is kind of how you speak to who your market is, and you speak about why you've chosen that specific market. You can also give reference to where you got your market resource. So you saw with Airbnb, they gave reference to those screenshots and where they got those statistics. Here there's reference, there's Airbnb, Statista, and PwC, where you can see the market validation. And then we go straight into the monetization model. So here there were different types of monetization models. So you saw with Uber as well, when they gave a breakdown of monetization models, when they, and even match fix or match, they spoke about selling. Like now, if you want to rank higher, you must pay $1. Or if you want to see your likes, maybe you only can see 10 likes a day, but maybe today, it's hot. You want to go and hit the streets and you want to see 20 matches. So maybe you'll pay an extra amount of money for that. So with this particular solution, it was focused on commission. Where they Airbnb is the one that spoke about commission, where they spoke about 10% commission, and then they multiplied that commission by their market size and got a figure and gave that estimate for a duration of time. You don't have to say that, you can just speak about how you're going to make money. Remember, you can also mention, these are my ingredients, or this is how much it costs for me to make a plate, and this is how much I sell a plate. But specifically here, it was commission, so it was more for ticketing and booking, also placement, ads, having ads, having different types of partnerships, So you have contracts where now you're exhibiting this particular destination this month, but obviously that partnership has paid to be showcased on your platform. And then also platform service and administration fee. So with Airbnb, they had like booking fee and all of that. Okay, and then this is the competitive landscape. So it's broken down into 4, where it's ticketing, digital booking, crypto travel, and travel financing. So obviously, again, your competitors are very, very applicable to you and what works and how you can break it down to you. So maybe it can be size, it can be fat, it can be accessibility, and it can be payments. So it always depends on what your competitors are doing, and then you slot them in. This is not always there, but it's good to speak on. So this is when you speak on who your partners are. If maybe your business does, you want to expand, maybe now you want to have your chicken stand at every Pick and Pay. So you're now kind of expanding and now you're working with Pick and Pay. Those different types of things that partners you can work with. Maybe now you work with Abo Mama Bas Ama Society and stuff like that. Maybe now when they have events, they call you and say, hey, Waza, we want that chicken. You can speak about that, especially if it is something in the works or if it's something you're looking to achieve in your business. And then this is pretty much the demo side. You guys saw this a lot on Airbnb, where they showed screenshots of how the app would work. Even on Uber and Match, they also showed this is how the app is going to look. So you will speak about demoing. If you have something physical, you can show us. It's honestly up to you. This is when you demo the product. And then this is pretty much what makes you different. So this was what was making you different as opposed to your other competitors. So what is your secret spice? What is your secret sauce that makes your chicken so mnandi? Obviously, you don't have to tell us, but you just speak about it, This is also just more the demoing and screenshots and visuals. And then this just spoke about the team. And then this speaks about your journey, maybe you speak about when you started this company, what is your journey and where are you going and what's next for you. If you have any traction and milestones, if, like I mentioned, maybe you've registered your business, I've registered my business, I have my logo, I have my company profile, I have pots and pans, I have mentioned everything that you have achieved, so that we believe in your business and we want to invest. And then this is the part where you speak about what you need. So the example I had used with the stove is you are looking for a stove that allows you to make more delicious chicken and make more quantity and more quality chicken at a time. Then you can speak about what you need. Maybe you want training, maybe you want a website, maybe all the things that you want, you say, this is what I want for my business, and this is why I want it for my business. And then this is pretty much the last slide where you can have your contact information and how the company and how the customers can get in touch with your company. We go back to our schedule. And that's pretty much us wrapping up session 2. I think we can take a break now and come back. Okay. Or let's just maybe continue and just finish off the rest of the presentation instead of taking a break. Because we were supposed to end this section at 12, but I see I'm a little bit early. So yeah, we're almost wrapping up. I'm done on my side. So I'm going to hand over and share and let Nkululeko take over for the next half of the session. Let me quickly go back to the program so you guys can see where we are. So we've done the pitch deck development of session 2, which was supposed to end at 12. So now we're going to have the rest of our program for the next 30 minutes, which I will hand over to Ms. Tenkosi. Thanks, everyone.
Good morning, innovators. Oh, sorry about that. Good morning, innovators. I hope in the right. I'm sure there's some excitement, and you guys are as excited as me that after 10 weeks, it's pretty much. This is officially our last session in this format until we actually close out next week. Now, I'm sure Niazbu's obviously going forward, what is the next steps? Next week, we're going to have the pitch competition, but outside of the pitch competition, because not everyone is comfortable with pitching at the stage, what we will be doing is also having somewhat of a graduation. So you'll also be getting certificates for your participation in the program. So this certificate obviously will it's a recognized certificate by that has not so much accreditation, but it's a certificate of program completion that will have that is acknowledged and recognized by the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, as well as, most importantly, the Technology Innovation Agency. Why important is because for any future opportunities within TIA, you will be able to also attach and use that program completion. Even no apply for an opportunity at TIA, you will be able to also be to showcase that you actually did participate in a TIA supported or a TIA program. Right. So the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship program is not something that ephelayo manje, because it's something that the Technology Innovation Agency has committed to support and roll out further into Gert Sibande District. So currently, obviously, it's being rolled out in Lekwa, Standerton, but in future, there will also be opportunities for innovators that are from all the other 6 municipalities as a Gert Sibande. So, Abokovenbegi, Msugaligwa, Mkondo, Dipaliseng, Abo Pixiga, Iseme, you name it, but fundamentally it doesn't necessarily mean that it's limited to Lekwa, right? So one of the major things is that I'm a programmer, so usually they run for long, right? They could run for 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, and in extreme cases it can run for longer. Noltan, do you have a question? I see you, Noltan. Do you have your hand raised up?
Oh, yes. I not too good. I have a question, Sanmonani, but I just want to give you a small input, and then you maybe work on it or think about it. But since since you're saying Sizotola the certificate regarding the technological, lead the but also I don't want as innovators to get limited. So I would suggest you also organize hosting a 5-day course, NYDA for funding. I mean, I do have the certificate, but I think it will be beneficiary not to limit people to only apply for the site with technology so that whatever ideas they have, they'll be able to fulfill them. I don't know. I'm sure, right?
No, definitely. I mean, that's a valid point. Remember that ultimately everything that you've learned now, it doesn't necessarily limit you to have technology. Konamanje, there's actually in the cohort that we have, not many people have technology-based ideas, right? So entrepreneurship applies across the board. With regards to NYDA, NYDA branch work differently, right? eGauteng, if you already have a certificate, even if you, for example, and as a Free State, just based on experience with working with the NYDA, is if you already have a qualification where you even may have done a business-related module, right? They don't necessarily want you to do that 5-day course, because what they then need you to do is to prove that you have done some type of business management training. With the Sprint Accelerator, it wasn't necessarily focused on business management. It was focused on technology innovation. The reason for that is because this is a Department of Science and Technology initiative. So it has entrepreneurship elements because innovation and entrepreneurship work hand in hand, right? So for those that are looking to have business management courses and stuff like that, beyond this program, there will be other sort of programs that are related to that. But as an agency, technology innovation agency, and in NYDA have completely different mandates, right? So I know there's a couple that have shared Uguti, they've already started with the process of engaging, for example, NYDA and Abusida and everything like that. That is 100% welcome, and it's supported. So if you are one of those innovators that are in that position where you are not necessarily going to be limited to having a technology-based or a technology-enabled business, you are definitely well in advanced, well encouraged for you to you can go that route, right? So it's a very important question because it's something that obviously a lot of the innovators have been asking themselves. Okay, so from here, what do I do? Many of the guys have already started the formalization process, but the goal of the Sprint Accelerator was to accelerate three things: the business concept development, the formalization, and then obviously what we focused on today, the development of a pitch communication or pitch deck tool, right? These three things are very important, whether you are in technology or not, for you to be able to communicate your business. Unfortunately, organizations like CEDFA and NYDA, they necessitate to develop a business plan. Now, it's a bit tricky for a lot of entrepreneurs who are still starting to develop a business plan when you haven't even gone into the market to sell, right? Because it becomes more of a plan than anything. When you go to many funders, right, whether it's international funders or TIA, some of the principles and the requirements that some of the agencies require are not applicable. For example, business plans are no longer used in venture funding initiatives anymore. Only in a case where you would have already started, for example, you have an actual business account, financials for 3 years, then it makes sense. Many of the guys that were in the program didn't necessarily have that because we are all in ideation stage. So the introduction of business management training, getting NYDA definitely will note that down and incorporate it. But from a TIA perspective, TIA works completely different. What you will do at NYDA and what you will do in TIA is definitely different. But those two agencies as government agencies can and are able to work together to have programs that run and are complementary.
Thank you very much. I understand.
Awesome stuff. No, thank you for that question. That's a very important question because the way that you fund and support technology versus funding a normal business that doesn't have necessarily a technology angle is completely different, right? So for future nodes, just understanding the distinction that when you are moving in this one route, these are some of the requirements. When you're moving in another route, these are some of the other requirements. But nonetheless, not to spend too much time, just a reminder about next week. So next week, what will happen is we'll definitely have some judges that will be judging the presentations. The agenda for the actual week will be shared. Sometime, if I just need to check with the rest of the team, later today or earliest tomorrow morning in terms of what the day will look like next week. And then ultimately everything is still the same in terms of what the prize winnings are, what the requirement is. Iseshini namhlanje was designed to make sure that you understand what you must put in your pitch deck, right? So it's very important that you actually compile a pitch deck or a pitch presentation. You will be able to share it so that you are able to pitch. The pitch examples that were provided Google session will also be shared on Google Classroom. So when you have time from today going to next week, you will be able to then obviously take that and develop your pitch. The easiest tool to use to develop a pitch, as we had communicated in the last physical session, was using Canva, because there's already templates. All you need to do is take your own logo and put information that is relevant to your business. The guidelines when it comes to the pitch, each person will get 10 minutes to pitch their business. And how you need to use the 10 minutes is that there will be 6 minutes for you to do your presentation. The reason why we are saying 6 minutes is because typically when you are doing a pitch, we call it an elevator pitch. They give you 3 minutes. So imagine you are in an elevator with Bill Gates. By some a luck that you may have, you somehow find yourself in a building and you get in the same lift as Bill Gates, and then you have 3 minutes to sell yourself and your business. That's the standard when you do pitches. But because obviously for many of the people this is something that's new, we doubled the time. The rest of the 4 minutes will be for Q&A. So the judges will be asking you questions about your pitches, questions about obviously if you are saying you are selling this at this price, what actually justified, as an example, you saying you are costing like this, right? Because pricing and costing is one of the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs have. You know, understanding your overheads, understanding your revenue streams, which if you've done your business model canvas, you should be able to understand how many revenue streams and what is the cost structure of your actual business. What are the key partners? What are the key resources, key activities, and ultimately, yini value proposition yako, and who are the actual customers. If you're gonna say to the judges, I do laundry and I do laundry for everyone, trust me, they're going to penalize you, because that means that you didn't do a proper thinking, because not everyone is going to buy into your into being your customer and buying into what you are doing. So it needs to be very clear when you are doing your research, when you are preparing to say, this is what I'm, who I'm servicing. Am I servicing businesses? Am I servicing government? Am I servicing normal everyday people who are employed or are unemployed, who live in this area? and here are their habits, right? So this goes back to taking you back to that initial exercise that we started with, where we looked at design thinking, where you have to follow those 5 steps, right? Where you have to make sure that you empathize with your customer, because when you empathize with your customer, you'll know exactly what their pain points are and what you are solving for. So those are the key points and tips that I can share for the purpose of next week. And then and the agenda will also then be shared next week. Now, obviously, the prizes have a cash component, and then they also have actual services like the development of an online store, development of a corporate identity, and other stuff. That stuff will also be shared with you guys in detail, in terms of, if you do get one of the top 3 prizes, what are you going to be able to get from that, right? So that's very important. And then I think going forward, in terms of the announcements, we'll also share a pitch preparation guideline, right? A document incorporating a lot of the points that were presented today, that are saying, okay, here are the things that you need to look out for. What are the slides that you need to have on your pitch presentation, and how long, how you must use your time, how you must use whatever communication tools that you have at your disposal to make sure that you are able to effectively communicate your business, effectively communicate your vision. Ultimately, some of the guys haven't started. For example, that's not a disadvantage if you don't have customers yet. But what's also important is how you sell the story and how you sell the vision that you have for your business. Because it's one thing to have a registered business, but it's another thing to have a registered business that has active customers that will enable you on a month-to-month basis to generate a financial, because that's what will enable you to go to the bank to get a loan for expansion, enable you to get further funding going forward, right? So think of those things and make sure that you really do a lot of that thinking, so that you can clearly, really effectively communicate your business in the best way possible, right? And I think just before I move on to the last announcement, there are groups in this cohort of innovators that are not working as solo founders. There are a couple of groups. So you have the option to say, we all are going to present. If need 3, for example, you can then see who presents what, and then you split the 6 minutes into two minutes each for each person. Or you select one person who you are confident that they are able to speak in front of people and actually communicate. Because it's not, public speaking is not everyone's strengths. Some people are more introverted and it's not one of their strengths. But unfortunately, when you are in business, you have to learn to shake that fear off, because selling is about speaking to people and being comfortable with that. But out of a group of 3 or 4 or 5, there's always that 1 or 2 people that are able to properly communicate in Abasabi. So if you are comfortable with choosing one person, perfectly fine. If you want to split it and have more than one person present, that's perfectly fine also. But what's important is keeping in mind the amount of time that you are going to be given, right? Because you will be timed. There will be a timer, and once your 6 minutes is done, we will have to cut the time, and then we move into Q&A, right? So that's one of the things. Think long and hard for the people that are in groups and are in companies where it's more than one person. And then now, before we close, I think we have about 10 more minutes. So we had obviously a competition about for food innovators, right? And the requirements there was that you need to obviously submit a quotation. You need to submit proof that you actually are participating on Google Classroom. Obviously on Google Classroom, it's an environment, it's a learning management platform where we also upload a lot of the information, like this information that we're presenting today, the videos, a lot of different information about banking, compliance, and all those types of things are loaded there. But alongside that, what is there and very important was that there were specific tasks that were also given to all of the innovators based on each topic of focus. So if it was design thinking, you needed to obviously do a user journey or design thinking map. And I think we didn't really have a very hectic requirement there. It was more of a feedback form. And then there was the another one where you needed to develop a business model canvas and then upload it onto the platform. And you needed to obviously develop logos for those that didn't have logos. And if you had a logo, you needed to also upload it on the platform. And many other tasks. I think in total, there were between 5 and 7 tasks that needed to be completed on Google Classroom, because that's important. Even when you go ahead and you look for other opportunities, those are the assets that you need to make sure that you have. You need to have a business profile. And now that you have Canva, you know that you can create one for free, and you can also use artificial intelligence for the development of those things. So those tools are at your disposal. But obviously, we needed to get your quotation. So in total, there were 5 innovators from the group of 34 innovators that are actively participating in this Sprint Accelerator competition. 5 were in the food space based on their expression of interest to obviously participate and submit their quotations for assessment. So what was assessed is as follows. The submission of the information that was requested, all of the information that was requested, CIPC document, a quotation, a menu, and a couple of other stuff that I can't remember off the top of my head. But there were 5 main things that is the right? That's one element of requirement, right? The second one was whether or not the innovator submitted within the time, right? Within the time before the deadline, not after the deadline, because if you submit it after the deadline, we can't really accept that, right? Then the other one is obviously showcasing proof that you actually are on Google Classroom or any other proof that you are there. It could have actually even been a picture of you being at SIAC or a screenshot of you your profile on Google Classroom, but the main thing is Google Classroom because that's where we also create those things. Then lastly, and most importantly, is how effective and how active you were on Google Classroom in completing a lot of the necessary information, right? Now, in consideration of all of those assessment criteria, each submitted a quotation. Oh, and the last one, the most important one. We also looked at attendance, right? How many of the how many sessions were attended, whether it's online or physically, and in cases where some were, for example, unable to attend, all of that information is recorded, right? To say this person reported that they were unable to attend due to a prior or whatever reason a big bambi, but that was very important for us to also assess how many times were you able to actually commit and be there. Now, looking at all of this, the business that was able to successfully look into and actually compete as an entrepreneur and really tick a lot of the boxes is, please click on the next slide, Somashishini Taste and Trends. Now, when it comes to this innovator, very impressive stuff, submitted all of the work. There's a business model canvas that we were able to assess. There is the logo development stuff, and all of the assessments, for example, were graded. Attendance was in check, whether it was virtual or physical, and all of the requirements from a quotation perspective, how the quotation was broken down in terms of what this is, what is on offer, or how the service provision that is going to happen on that day is going to be structured. So this is really encouraging to see that a lot of the learnings from this program were taken into consideration for this entrepreneur to be able to ultimately at the end clinch this opportunity and go forward. But going forward, all the other innovators also have the opportunity for the presentation. That's where you would also be able to get a similar prize or even a better prize in terms of the size of the value. But from today, what you need to expect from our side is to make sure that we send you the agenda for next week, the guideline for how you must structure a pitch presentation yako, and then lastly, we'll also upload this workshop so that you can also go back Maunesikhathi from today until next week, go through a presentation, see what is required of you from a pitch perspective, and then let's see each other next week. There will be the judges. Very excited about the judges. Very experienced entrepreneurs in the technology space, in the food space, guys that have really built successful local and international businesses will be there to judge and support you and your business as you are actually building up something that is sustainable going forward. But I think for today, we are done. We should definitely acknowledge the fact that you really stuck it out up until this point. Not many were as consistent as you guys, but I genuinely believe every single person who is on this call is 100% capable of building a successful business. And you are already, I don't even want to say you are already starting, you've already started, right? So what we need more of in the country is people like you who are able to really come up with solutions during the tough economic times that we are facing. And we look to you guys to solve the challenge of unemployment, to solve the challenge of young people not being active in the economy. So for that, thank you very much for joining today's session. We'll definitely catch up on the WhatsApp group, and then we'll also catch up, more importantly, next week when we meet for the program closeout. Thank you very much, guys. See you next week.